Have you ever realized, nah, this person doesn't care about me? Do our friends actually like us? Would they make time for us? Are we the ones initiating, reaching out? Are we opening up more or listening more? Do they even text back? Are we really friends? When in doubt, believe it, but pay more attention. Despite knowing how friendship works, we could still lack experience of real-world variables that give us better judgment of character and so on. Let's work on improving that by examining what makes a friend and asking ourselves the worst questions about friendship. I'm Phil.
I'm Pierce.
I'm Todd. This video belongs in the Let's Relook series. Today, let's relook friendship. In this video, we'll be referring to this friendship pyramid-looking framework, which was covered in video number 5 on what are friends for. Are we using the term friends too loosely? Looking at the conditions, you have 4 tiers of friends, and just because we're not close doesn't mean we're not friends. So we don't have to be close to be friends. In the spirit of not taking things so seriously and to avoid being fussy and pretentious, yes, tier D still counts as friends. Sure, sometimes it might be unclear where the line is between tier Ds and acquaintances, but let's keep it simple. If we meet them enough, this is decided by us by the way, and we like them, it's alright to call people we aren't close to friends. But sometimes, not often, it's not so simple. The complexity of real life can make accurately judging someone's character difficult. We can end up being very wrong about people we like. For example, a newly divorced woman could realize her straight male friends didn't actually want to be just friends when given the opportunity to strike.
What I've noticed in the world is that there's a lot of people that use the word friends too loosely. You gotta make the difference between a colleague, an acquaintance, someone you just met once, and a friend.
So, calling someone we don't really know our friend can look like our friendships are shallow. Shallow is fine. As we've said, lots of things are fine. That includes tier D friendships having value. Don't take life so seriously after all. However, if we're the type to find that such friendships have no value on our lives, then we either deepen the friendship and get to know them more, or cut them off. More on this later. So, are we calling people friends too loosely? I personally don't think so. Being a poor judge of character or getting people wrong isn't something we should beat ourselves up for. Sometimes scenarios where people show their darker parts never show up, or when they do, it's too late. However, I can only say this as someone who has never suffered costly consequences of poor character judgment. Depending on where we are, these consequences can be very damaging, so I'm definitely not speaking for all. Regardless, it serves us to avoid mistakes, let alone repeat them, so it's probably worth studying people a little more. How well do we know each other? It therefore makes sense that there should be a minimum knowledge threshold of what we need to know about a person before we're considered friends. Not strictly enforced though, of course. Based on the conditions that lead to a tier C friendship, we should already know what they do for fun. Their likes, dislikes, interests, hobbies. So on top of that, it probably makes sense to know their job, assuming we're not co-workers, and how they feel about it. Some of their backstory, including what they did in school, what their upbringing was like at home, how many siblings, etc. Their beliefs, both broad and specific. This could be anything from how they see their hobby, view their lifestyle, to what they think about religion. Feel free to use the 10 to find out what comprises their life. This may sound like a background check, and doing that to people we're supposed to call friends may rub some of us the wrong way. However, I'd say that this is a case of not what you do, but how you do it. Learning these things about your friends should be a joyful process. It would enable us to be better friends, look out for them better if they run into trouble. The results of a background check are just a bonus, as in making sure they're not a bad person and reducing the odds of this following situation from happening. I don't even know you anymore. This is a scenario of whether to stand by friends or not when it feels like the world has turned against them, and that can occasionally affect us by association. Since things don't happen in a vacuum, the answer really isn't all that clear-cut, and we have to investigate what do we think we know about them that turns out we don't. So we'll check the facts of the situation. Did our friend A actually mess up? Or B, are people attacking based on misinterpretation or worse, misinformation? Answer should be B. Did our friend infringe on anyone's human rights? The answer should be no. Did our friend encourage or support the infringement of anyone's human rights? The answer should be no. Did our friend do the opposite of add value? Reduce someone's odds of survival and or demotivate them from living? In other words, be toxic or the answer should be no. Are we worried about our friend or ourselves? Should be our friend. If the general vibe of what happened is, yep, seems like the type of trouble they would get into, then great news. We know our friend. On one hand, nobody's perfect and everyone has flaws, selfishness, and inner darkness. If we don't give our friends, of all people, the chance to communicate openly and be understood and maybe learn from mistakes, then we might want to look into developing more empathy and kindness or acceptance and forgiveness. In such cases, we'd want to avoid being fair weather friends who don't stay during tough times. On the other hand, everyone also has the capacity to harm others, and that's far less tolerable, let alone excusable. This is the worst level of darkness because it's not inner anymore. So if the only thing we can say to our friend's situation is, I don't even know you anymore, then it's likely that most decent human beings would support our decision to cut him off, like Ashton and Mila to Danny. But at the end of the day, we know best what we should do. Do they even care about me? Let's go back to how friendship has value and simply isn't free. It's only worth something because it costs something, and that it isn't so much transactional as it is conditional. One of the most important conditions is, of course, reciprocation. Have you ever realized, nah, this person doesn't care about me? Or something similar like, do our friends actually like us? Would they make time for us? Are we the ones initiating, reaching out, texting first, asking to meet? Are we opening up more or listening more? Do they even text back? Generally, yes, it's weird and socially inept behavior to constantly calculate and keep score because friendship isn't transactional. Don't put numbers on it. Just because in the last 1 year we initiated 3 times doesn't mean they need to match us by reaching out just as many times. It's also not a competition for who's the better friend. Right, so if we get them a more expensive gift, we don't get a medal or performance bonus later down the road. However, friendship being conditional means that in the absence of numbers, there's an unspoken exchange of value, most commonly known as effort. Effort is still indicated by who is texting first, asking to meet more, all that. So in a sense, I guess we're still naturally ambiguously calculative by gut feel. If it feels one-sided, then we hash the problem out in feelings, not numbers. Are we the problem? It's worth checking first if this is the case, because the worst thing we could do is feel like our friends don't put in effort and then lose them for life based on an ill-informed judgment call. Are we putting in effort? We should probably check if we've been a good friend, or whether we've conveniently forgotten all the times we failed to reply or didn't want to give them the time of day. It's also possible that we could be complaining and adopting some self-pitying victim mentality, expecting them to initiate because we deserve that from them, even when we're also guilty of not really reaching out. Are we needy, desperate, and a general turn-off? Because people tend to have a good sense for it and not really like it. It makes us less enjoyable to be around. Have we made ourselves worthy? Common advice is to focus on ourselves. We need to have something going on for us. Since we can't expect people to be available to us on our whims, we should find something to do if we don't already have that. Get a hobby. Strive at our job. It's something we can do independently within our control without the need for friends. With them, it could be better, but it's not a must. People don't need a reason to care is another unhelpful platitude, because if people didn't need a reason to care, they also wouldn't need a reason to stay away. Then everyone's irrational and nobody has any agency to change the state of our friendships or lack thereof. And we should all just give up and accept our situation forever. Good thing we don't believe that. Yeah, we believe that friendship is conditional, meaning that we can maximize the probability of friendship happening to us by changing ourselves in a way that's more deserving of it. Being in our company should be a conducive environment for others to feel good. If being with us is not an experience worth the time and effort, then it makes sense that they wouldn't want to be friends with us. Do we actually like them for who they are, or are we just using them to fill our need to feel seen and understood? While exercising can be a task that we do to just keep in shape, being with friends should not feel like a task that we do to just keep ourselves sane. Sure, in a sense, every human uses other humans to save their own mental health. Reductively speaking, Everyone uses each other and everyone is self-interested. However, seeing human interaction and relationships this way doesn't seem very healthy. Although we're free to do it if it genuinely doesn't negatively affect us at all. Consider reframing it as we're friends. Friends boost each other's motivation to live and enjoy doing that. Are we taking life too seriously? So we mentioned that people who think tier C and D friends don't add value should either deepen the friendship and get to know them more, or cut them off. However, we think this mentality could be a contributing factor to us not having enough friends and feeling chronically lonely. Maybe we're being precious and snobby and holding some lofty ideals or high expectations of friendship. That sounds like serious business, which may make things unnecessarily difficult or even counterproductive to the point of friendship, which is to feel good. Not sure if we're really friends. Whenever we're uncertain if our friends care about us, we would always recommend continuing to believe that they do. Trust that we're still really friends. The instant we don't, we're more likely to behave in ways that lead to the downfall of a friendship anyway. And this cruel self-fulfilling prophecy just doesn't add value to us. That doesn't mean blindly assume that everything is okay though. If we feel this disturbance in our gut, then trust that too. It's pointing to us what we might be taking for granted and that we have to work harder to expand our awareness of the situation and get a better read on everything. That's equally important if we want to develop being people-centric and adaptable. Studying people can feel like a chore sometimes. It's not fun, but it's for our own good. Best before dead. Here at LTAp, we make content about what it means to live well as a kind of answer to everything. There could be billions of different interpretations to this, since ultimately everybody gets to decide for themselves individually. But if you're interested in our suggestions, you could stick around with us. We have a lot to answer for a friend.